Imagine this. You were up late one night tossing and turning. Your body was completely exhausted, but your mind was completely awake. Your mind starts to wander and ask questions, like, what is the meaning of life? What if oxygen is just killing us? Will time travel ever be possible? Well, I'm here to answer those questions, but unfortunately, I do not have an answer for the meaning of life. But as for what if oxygen is killing us? Maybe, but who cares about that? Let's talk about time travel. In order to understand time travel, you're going to have to understand the theory of relativity. So here is my simple guide to the theory of relativity. Pretend you are on a moving train with your dear friend Albert. The train, relative to the outside world, is moving. But you and your dear friend Albert notice how everything on the train is stationary despite the train moving. This is because you, Albert, and everything else on the train is moving at the same speed as the train, making everything inside the train stationary. Now pretend that your other friend, Mr. Maxwell, is standing at a train station watching you and Albert pass by. Mr. Maxwell, relative to you, Albert, and the train, is stationary. This is called relative motion, and everything in the universe experiences this except for light. Now, before we start talking about light, here is something you must know before we continue. The speed of light is always constant. Now let's say we have this thing. It has two mirrors and a light beam between them. Now let's pretend that your friend, Albert, is actually an alien, and also has this thing, which is actually called a light clock. Albert the alien gets into his spaceship with his light clock and starts his journey back home to his home planet at nearly light speed. Do not forget that light is constant. Now, you, who is stationary on Earth holding the light clock with light moving at the same speed as the light in the light clock on Albert's spaceship, despite his spaceship moving, but in order for your light and your light clock and Albert's light and his light clock to be traveling at the same speed, something must give up in order for that to happen. That something is time. Here's where it gets interesting. As you approach the speed of light, it turns out that time slows down. And with Albert's spaceship reaching the speed of light, time slows down for Albert. This means that if Albert were to spend a day in space, this could mean that 70 years could have passed for you. This theory of relativity allowed people to break the normal way of thinking of time as constant, but rather as something that changes depending on how you move. This theory was discovered by Albert Einstein in 1905, and he believed that if you were able to surpass the speed of light, you will be able to go back in time. But since we have yet to discover any object that is able to go past the speed of light, we cannot time travel. But theoretically, if we were able to surpass the speed of light, we would be able to time travel. But since we can't find anything that is able to, we are stuck here in the present.